So we're going to talk about the estimates versus actuals report in QuickBooks Online Advanced. Now, this report was added early 2023 and it's only available in QuickBooks Online Advanced. So if you have QuickBooks Online Plus, Essentials, Simple Starts, you will not see this. And for some context, an estimate versus actual report is useful for a construction company, a contractor, any project-based business that wants to know what their estimated costs are, what their actual costs to date are on that estimated cost for that project, what the estimated income is, the total estimated amount for the project, the actual income, and the difference, so you know exactly where you are standing in that project before it's completed. So we're going to walk you through how to do this from scratch. We're going to do one by one, step one by one, so you can see how it works. I'm going to go into projects here, and I'm going to create a brand new project. So I'm going to click here, it says new project. I'm going to click on that. We're going to call this project ABC, and we're going to make this project of ABC Construction, customer ABC Construction. On the project, we leave it here in progress. That's fine. And then we click on save. So we got project ABC, good to go. There's zero income associated with that project, zero cost associated with that project. Now, the next step is I have to create what's called a cost estimate. This is a new feature that was added as a companion to the estimates versus actuals workflow. So you have to use a cost estimate, not a regular estimate, a cost estimate to make this work. So for this particular project, let's say I'm going to date this back to December of 2022, and there's going to be essentially the entire project, let's say it's going to be 100,000. We expect to make 100,000 from this project, but I'm going to break down how we're going to make this money or how we're going to earn the revenue from this project based on the particular tasks or items that we're selling in the project itself. So I'm going to break this down, and I have 4 items that I'm going to use. I'm going to use labor, I'm going to use materials, I'm going to use sub-labor, and I'm going to use equipment. So let's say the entirety of this project adds up to 100,000, but these are sort of my cost components to the project. And I'm going to add up what my costs are, then I'm going to add up the markup, and then the whole total amount should add up to 100,000. So let's say in terms of labor, these are like employees. I expect to put $20,000 in cost. That's what it will cost me. In materials, let's say I'm expecting to spend $15,000 worth of materials. In subcontracted labor, this is using a third party, a subcontractor, another company to do some of the labor, not internal labor, but subcontracted labor. Let's say we're expecting to spend $10,000. And then in equipment, we're expecting to, let's say we're going to rent $5,000 worth of equipment. So my cost for this project, what I expect to pay at the end of the day, this is going to cost me $50,000, and I'm hoping to profit $100,000. So just to simplify things, we're going to do, we're just going to double all these numbers. So essentially, we're going to charge double the amount that we expect to pay. And in the real world, you know, what you expect to pay and when you end up paying, it's never really 100%, right? I mean, that's the purpose of this, is that we're sort of keeping track of what's going on with this project at all times using this project estimate and estimate versus actual feature. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save and close. And there we go. My estimate is created. Right now, there's nothing on the screen because this screen doesn't show estimates. But if I click on project reports and I click on that and I click on estimates versus actuals, it will take me to my report. So again, I haven't done anything yet, so nothing's going to show up here. I also have to make sure, and this is a really important piece, that the estimate needs to be, cannot be pending status, which is why we don't even see the estimate information in here. So I'm going to click on this magnifying glass and click on the estimate that I just created. Just going to go back to the estimate, and right now it's under pending status, so it's not even going to post the estimated amount. So I'm going to put this under accepted, and then click on save and close, so at least my estimates post in this report. So right now in this report, only thing I see is my estimated cost. I haven't spent any money. I haven't invoiced any money. So that's why under actual and under actual income, actual cost, and actual income, I don't see any information there yet. Okay, so there we go. We're good to go so far. Let's say that as part of the sort of requirements for this project, we're going to ask our customer to put a 25% down payment, and we're going to invoice that 25%. So I'm going to click on create invoice right from here. And I'm just going to say, hey, we're asking you to give us 25%. I'm going to click on create invoice, and essentially it's going to do standard progress invoicing. You'll take the estimate, and then it'll just multiply every line times 0.25, and then I can click on save, and that becomes an invoice, and that becomes officially, quote unquote, based on this report, the actual amounts invoiced. So let me go back into project reports, and then estimates versus actual, and now we should see that $25,000 right there where it says actual income. That's $25,000. Now don't pay attention to these percentages. They're kind of miscalculated. I believe that QuickBooks, when they first released this, which is when I'm recording this, kind of had a misstep on how it calculates percentage difference. So just ignore percentage difference for now, and I'll show you how to export this to Excel and clean it up afterwards so it's actually functional. But so far so good. We think we're going to spend $50,000. We have invoiced $25,000 so far. Now I'm going to create a whole bunch of transactions for expenses. So let me go into my new button over here, and let's go into expense, and let's say we went to Home Depot and we bought some materials. We'll start with that. So I'm going to come down here under item details, and I'm going to try to pick the same item to stay consistent, the same item that I used on the estimate itself. Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to get good sort of one-to-one relationships. So I'm going to select the exact same item I put on the estimate in the first place. And let's say that I went to Home Depot and I bought some wood. Let's just call it that. And that was, let's say that was $6,900. And then I'm going to click on save and close. So I've recorded that Home Depot expense. Now, if I go back to my estimates versus actual, nothing shows up here because I did not assign that cost to that project. It's a really important piece. I sort of missed it on purpose, so you can see what are the repercussions of just entering expenses and not telling it what project is for. But let's say, for example, that after investigating, the $6,900 wasn't just for that project. It was maybe $3,900 for project A and $3,000 for project B. So now I have to take my time and make sure that I job cost these things properly. So let's put here metal or whatever. And let's say that for one project, it was $3,900. And for an entirely different project, it was $3,000. So this is going to properly job cost to each of these projects. So we're going to put the $3,900 to project ABC. And let's say the $3,000 goes to some other project here that I have in the books. And then I click on save and close. And now you should see the $3,900 refresh in this report and show up there as an actual cost. And it's aligned one-to-one with that materials line. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. There we go. So it's aligned with that line. So far, I have spent out of my $15,000 budget for materials, $3,900. So if I were to divide $3,900 divided by 15,000, I would know exactly how much of that budget I've spent so far. This percentage doesn't really mean a whole lot. So like, again, just ignore the percentage column for now. So let's say I'm gonna pay some payroll. Now in this particular QuickBooks file, I don't have payroll activated, so I can't really show you with payroll. So we're gonna do it with subcontractor payments instead. So I'm gonna go ahead and write some payments to some subcontractors. I'm gonna go to new. Let's say I'm gonna go to check, and then I'm gonna write a check to one of our subcontractors here. Okay, then I'm gonna select one of my subcontractors here. Let's say Jorge Gomez is one of my subcontractors, and then I'm gonna select the item here for a subcontractor. I'm gonna try to use sub labor, the same exact item I used in my original cost estimate. And let's say that we paid him $10,000 for this project, and this was the project ABC. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and just click save and close. And as soon as I do that, if I go back into my projects and then go back into project ABC, where are you? Right here. Then now we should see that project cost here. I can expand that and see that there's $13,900 in materials. I also have some timesheets tied to a particular employee. I haven't processed payroll yet, But if you do enter timesheet data in this screen, in the project screen, you have the option to show actual payroll expense. So when I actually process payroll for employees, it would show that. But if you want to see sort of tentative based on what's on a timesheet assigned to that job, you can see that in this screen as well. In either case, when I go into project reports and I go to estimates versus actual, that's going to show me only the actual expenditures made. So the timesheet data is not going to be logged in the estimates versus actuals. Now we get to see that our total budget for sub labor is 10,000, and we used the whole thing. So we paid that subcontractor for the whole thing, and then we also paid the materials. So far I've spent 13,900 out of the whole budget. If I were to divide 30,000 divided by 50,000, that would let me know more or less where I am expenditure wise. Now this also works with bills. So you don't have to actually have the expenses paid. It works with accrued expenses as well. So let's say I'm going to go and enter a bill for some equipment rental. So let's say we have a company called Marlin Equipment. Okay, perfect, Marlin Equipment. And we're going to use, again, we're going to use an item, and we're going to try to use the same items that we have been using in the original estimate. And let's say we're going to rent some equipment for about $2,500. I haven't paid it yet. It's just sitting there on a bill. But as long as the expenditure is made and is properly job costed or assigned to a project, and then I save that and close that, I can go back into this report. It will refresh, and I'll notice that about 50% of my budget for the $5,000 that I've estimated I have spent so far. So far I have 16,500 of my expenditures all spent for this project. Now, what do we do with this information? How do we actually take action with this? Well, unfortunately, as of when I'm recording this, which is January 2023, this report is actually technically incomplete. It's missing some key pieces of information. Number one, the column for percentage difference is just wrong. That column needs to be, you gotta get rid of it completely. It's not calculating correctly. And I'm also missing sort of my work in progress information. So I'm gonna show you how to build that. So I'm gonna click on the export button and then go to export to Excel. And then I'm gonna take this information in Excel and I'm gonna manipulate it a little bit. So once I manipulate it, I could probably get it to where I want it to be. So let's bring that over here. So there's my Excel. Let's make this 200% so it's easier to read. Okay, perfect. So first thing I want to do is probably just ignore this difference column. For the time being, it's really not that important for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide that. This percentage difference, I'll just delete the item level. So for now, I'm gonna ignore the item level, but I'm gonna go ahead and just use the correct percentage here, which is 16,500 divided by the 50,000, because that's going to tell me exactly where I am in terms of percentage. So far I have completed, quote unquote, 32% of that job. So I'm just gonna call it here percent completed based on costs. Okay, so this is percent completed based on cost, maybe not based on observation. I can go to that project and see, well, that's 10% done, or we haven't even started. That could happen. That's part of the realities of project management. But based on our accounting of the expenses that we spent and accrued so far, we have 32% of our budget already spent. Now, in theory, we should also have invoiced about that 32%. So I'm just gonna hide this one here, and I'm just gonna copy and paste a couple here so we can work with this. So let me just clear the contents here. So let's say on this one, I'm gonna instead of doing dollar difference, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call this one percent invoiced. Okay, so I'm just gonna take the actual invoiced amount divided by estimated income, and that's 25%. We knew this already because we did this when we did the progress invoice. I'm gonna hide this column too to avoid any confusions. So I've invoiced 25% of the job so far. Anytime that I see that I've completed accounting-wise, expenditure-wise, I've completed more than proportionally than the estimated that I have invoiced, I'm gonna have a cash flow issue. I'm gonna have what's called an underbilling. And this is what we're gonna build with this report, is the WIP report that contains this piece of information. So the next one is amount earned. Okay, so amount earned is supposed to be the percentage of completed or spent based on the original budget times the estimated income or the project value. So if I would have invoiced the same percentage proportionally as the completed cost based on budget, I would have earned $32,800, but I've only invoiced $25,000 so far. So now we're gonna do what's called over / under billings. This lets me know where I stand on that. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take equals the actual amount I have invoiced so far minus the amount earned. And then I press enter. So I'm short $7,800. So from cash flow perspective, I'm short. So I need to hurry up and try to invoice, another percentage, another chunk on the job, because right now I'm spending money at a faster rate that I am earning it. Okay, so that's going to be a key thing. And then now all of a sudden, this is no longer estimate versus actuals report. It's actually called a WIP report for that. So I think that's missing in QuickBooks Online. I wish they would have just released it looking like this. But if anybody from Intuit were to look at this, and I'll just highlight this here, were to look at this, you're welcome to take this design and implement it, because I think this is what the report should look like. Of course, we should also fill in this information here. I just went pretty quick and did that. So that's the WIP report in Excel that you can build really quick to know exactly where you stand on this project. Now, I'm gonna go back into my projects section really quick and just kind of appreciate what's happening with the project from the projects screen. So basically, here's my $25,000 I have invoiced so far. In this screen, you don't get any context of estimates. That's only what the report is for. And here's all the expenditures. And as I mentioned, this is a calculation estimate of payroll costs based on timesheets. If I switch over to payroll expenses, it's only going to show me my expenditures if payroll has been processed. And there's other reports here where it says project reports. There's other reports here, project profitability, for example. Essentially, is the same thing that we were looking at earlier. But I'm just going to bring that spreadsheet back here. But this information is not here so far. We can add this if we want to. So we can put here project profit or something like that. And I can take, in this case, I can take my actual income minus my estimated costs. So far, I am actually, quote unquote, making money on the project because I have invoiced $25,000. Hopefully I got paid, and I have paid only $16,500. So even though I am, like in this case, it's a negative, so you can see it there. But in this case, since I am negative in cash flow because I should have invoiced more, I'm still sort of profitable in the job so far. However, if stuff keeps going in this rate, and as I invoice my project and as I start spending money, if I start spending more money than this $50,000, all of a sudden my profitability will no longer be what I expected to be at the very beginning. So I might not hit that $50,000 amount profits that I want. So this is actually the current, just put here, current project profit. That's an important piece of information. Probably best to put it maybe somewhere in here instead of all the way back there. So I'm gonna cut that and paste that over here. Perfect.